you pull on that jersey, you represent yourself and your teammates. And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back. Get that through your head.
And here we go.
And it is no good. He missed it. Are you kidding me? The season can't end like that.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs to the 50. He runs to the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man.
Well. Nobody ever tells me anything. That NETMA is back. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to NETMA. It has been over a season, over half a year. And we are back. We are back. We are ready. As we'll ever be here for about this time. But NETMA makes its return. The teaser worked out wonderfully. You guys have been awesome in the interim, staying with just keeping up with the SFL, and all of a sudden, as soon as I made the announcement, keeping up with the return of NETMA. And you guys have been awesome ever since I made the announcement. So welcome back to NETMA, or Nobody Ever Tells Me Anything, with your host, Tyler Falk. It is so good to see so many of you already in here. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the week, and like the title card says, welcome back to craziness. There's an old quote by a famous sportscaster which goes, "The return to glory." Except this isn't no return to glory. This is a return to craziness, to lunacy, to absurdity. You all come here not to listen to me and my opinions. You love to listen to me make 2-10 predictions. That's all you guys love about me. Ain't that right? Alex Marshall, Ethan Muslin, Josh Farnsworth, Achilles Papatonis, and Guy Clausen in chat currently at the moment. Really do appreciate all of you, especially even if you're not listening live or listening on playback. But we're back. NETMA is back. And things look a little bit different. And they're going to be a little bit different. The show will not be what they were previously. Now, let's start by diving deep into all of this, right? So to begin with, when the first time the show ever released, the first tenure, the first take, if you will, of the show lasted just under a season, and same kind of thing with the second take. Anywho, regardless, they were about hour-long shows for the first time around, where I talked for an entire hour nonstop. I had a co-host for a little bit, but it just got really tiresome. And for a listener listening to Dave Axis, Ashley Jackson, The Streets Are Talking, we all know they're great shows. They're great people. This isn't a knock on them, but long shows can get kind of tiring for listeners. And in the age of the internet, a lot of people can't really sit for an hour long at a time anymore. And so when I brought back the show a second time, I said, you know what? I still want to do an hour length in terms of shows, but I want to do them broken up. I want to do daily content, something that had never been seen before in the SFL up until that point. And so I'm like, all right, I'll do daily content. 15, 20-minute shows, 4 to 5 days a week. Now, it was great for catching a quick show, quick opinions on your favorite flat cap, favorite 2-10 memes, but got really tiring as a content creator. I'm not built, I don't have the infrastructure to make content every single day. So why is NETMA back now, and how does NETMA plan to be different this time around? Well, here's what's going to happen. NETMA is going to be very, very organized. As you can see, there's a clock right there. That clock is going to keep us on track. This full-length episode will be around an entire hour every single week. But here's the catch. You see these little breaks that are coming up in there? Well, that means we're going to take a minute break for the host to reset, for maybe you guys to reset. And then at the end of this show, I am going to go into the show again. I'm also recording this show. And I'm going to break up the show into 4 15-minute chunks for those of you that want to watch the show just at 15 minutes a time. You've only got a 15-minute car ride from work to home, and you can't listen to a live show for about an hour long. It just doesn't make sense. I've got you covered. You can podcast this show as much as you'd like for 15 minutes at a time. Or if you don't want to watch the live show, you don't care what I say live, but you just want to hear one bit. For instance, this opening monologue is going to be one bit. The second bit will be a further breakdown of the monologue, a certain topic, or even an interview for that entire 15 length period. Third part is a rebranding of sorts. You kind of see it right there. It's called the People's Presser. Now that's what used to be called show questions in the NETMA Discord. It still is called show questions, but that is where the questions will come up. That's where I'll answer all the big questions. The smaller questions, the fun questions, that comes later. We'll talk about more of that in a second, because that all ties in to the last quarter of the show, where we've got a couple of different things going on. We've got power rankings in there, but instead in the past, where power rankings were so long and took so much time out of the show, I've really, really shrunk it down into a big bite-sized piece. And the whole last section, we can talk about power rankings, we can answer some other questions, we can talk a whole bunch about other stuff. So the big thing is here, this show is going to look different. It's going to be, I'm calling it a hybrid of the two types of program that came before. And hopefully that attracts more people to watching the show. That gives you guys a more incentive to watch however you want to watch. You guys get to pick and choose what you want to do. And it all depends on your participation. I popped into the show questions channel. I don't know if just a lot of people didn't have too many show questions or something, or any real big questions for me. But it's like mothballs in there. There's absolutely no show questions in there. If you want to put in a show question and you're not already in there, head on over to the description here in this live video. There's a link to the NETMA Discord server, which you can pop in and start typing away your questions. That way, I can answer them as part of the People's Presser. Or I'll just start asking questions live on air, and we'll take a few questions here and there. But for all intents and purposes, this show, as I've said from the beginning, has always been about you. The viewer, the listener, day in, day out. I don't do this show. I didn't bring back this show for me, for potential YouTube fame, for some award that may or may not be handed out this season. But I do this show for you guys. I do everything I possibly can to make this show as informative, as right, wrong, or indifferent, my opinionated self. I also try and make the show a little fun. So, also, to go along with this, I need your help. It took me a while to come up with all these graphics, and I'm still not done. There's still so much I want to do. Like, I want to add effects to the things you're seeing on that side. There we go. That side. I want, it's like I haven't done this in a while or something, but I want to add effects to this, to some of the transitions. You might see something blinking up there at the top left corner of your screen where it has the clock, which will tell us when a certain section is going to be done or not. But I also plan on putting together little nuggets of stuff. So if you ever envisioned yourself as like a voice actor, or you already are a voice actor if you're Bo Martin Jr. over here, but if you would like to help make NETMA even more special and you want to be part of NETMA, even if you don't want to be a part of NETMA for a long time commitment, there's a way you can help. There's a way you can be part of the show. So let me know what you want to do. I'll be putting stuff in the NETMA server Discord, in the NETMA Discord server. Words are hard, even for a broadcaster. But I will get to everything as quickly as possible, because I want to make this show even better than it already has been, and I want to continue pushing myself, and I want to continue pushing SFL content in a positive direction. So many more folks jumping in, folks I haven't talked to in a year or even more. You got Charlie Beletsky in there, Albert Begin, Will Todd's here, Neil Rivers. So many more folks jumping in. You guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here and being with me and through all of the craziness that has been. Bridge City Bird jumping in. Right now, this show, even this first show, there's gonna be some hiccups. There's gonna be points where I mess up because I'm learning the new system. I literally put all this stuff here in the last month, and half of it doesn't work, or doesn't work the way I'd like it to. But we will get all of this done. So, coming up in the next 3/4 of an hour, we're going to be talking about, in the next segment, playing catch up. That means I'll be talking about what I missed during the period between my second retirement and now. We got to talk about a couple championship games. We're going to talk about some SFLM championship games. We get to talk about an off season, an era change. We get to discuss, and I get to get off my chest a lot of things I didn't say on Access Live during the time I was on Access Live. We get to discuss a lot more things and more coming up in the next 45-ish minutes. So stay tuned, stay close, and I'll see you after the first break. And just like that, we are back from break number 1 of 3 for the first inaugural show back to NETMA. Welcome back to Nobody Ever Tells Me Anything. I am your host, Tyler Falk. And now we get to do a couple different things. And I see a couple of people already thinking ahead. Yes, that's actually what I was thinking about doing. I'd like to plug like Access Live, or plug The Streets Are Talking, or maybe an article from the new SFL website into the show, into these breaks. That way, I can not really they don't have to sponsor anything, but we can give some love to other shows in that regard, in that way, where we get to, you guys get to see other people's shows. Maybe I just put a clip in there. Lot of ideas, lots and lots of ideas. Keep them coming. Put them in the show. Put them in the show Discord. We can talk about it. All right, so we're going to play catch up. Got about 14 minutes to talk about what I missed. So, of course, last couple seasons, it has been all Baltimore. that's the big thing right there. It's been Baltimore and only Baltimore. That's it. That's it. 4 new expansion teams, but that's it. Seattle, Minnesota, Indianapolis, and Canton. There we go. How can I forget Canton? But we've got 4 new teams. Baltimore, and much to the chagrin of Eddie Gage and the rest of the Arizona Scorpions. Sorry, Eddie. Sorry, Scorpions. Sorry, SFL. But it's been all Baltimore for that era. The minor league's been a little bit hit, has been actually pretty good. If you guys actually have a chance to watch the minor league, Albuquerque completed a back-to-back championship run. They missed out on the playoffs this past season, and all of a sudden, here comes Madison. Madison jumps into the fray, and they take down Lincoln, who made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. And they go to the championship game, and all of a sudden, Madison looks like Baltimore. Madison took care of business, and for the first time, I'm jumping ahead real quick, but for the first time that I've seen, an entire minor league team gets liquidated in the draft. Insane stuff. And we saw so many rookie quarterbacks come off the board. Not just as a starter, but for a majority of them, they're going to be backups. We are going to see backup quarterbacks, backup halfbacks. Well, backup halfbacks really aren't a new thing. That's a 2-back system, but I digress. But backup quarterbacks, deep depth in teams. We take a look at Alamo City with 34 potential players. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. This new era of the SFL, that's been the hot topic of attention for a lot of the SFL. We're moving away from All Pro Football 2K8, moving to a modded version of ESPN football, being called 4K 23, where there's oodles, and toaster strudels worth of customization, not just in the playbooks and the liberty to do a whole lot more with playbooks, but in stadiums themselves. It blew my mind to look at what people were doing to an ancient game in today's standards and really make stadiums and a whole lot of other stuff their own. Let's take DC, for example. They took control of the roof, which in 2K and ESPN 2K football, it's Detroit Field. It's Ford Field. It's a dome roof. That thing don't retract. But DC was able to find the file and remove the roof. Now, the only downside to that is there won't be any snow or rain or anything for DC, which means it'll all be sunny in DC. I thought it's supposed to be always sunny in Philadelphia, but I digress. Anywho. But the amount of stuff, the creativity of this community is incredible. It's phenomenal. We take a look at Queen City's build for, I believe they took Tampa Bay Stadium. So they could either remove the entirety of the pirate ship, or what I think they're doing is I think they put their own flag up on there. And don't we mention logos? Our own team logos are now on the field. Not some generic best we can do logo from All Pro, which opens the door for so many new potential names, potential teams, locations, combinations. You have it. We've got 4 more spots, maybe more, for this league to grow. Now, I don't see us growing for another 3 to 4 seasons for us to get to 32 teams. I'll come back to that here in a second. But the potential for it is there. Back to that point, because I'm already on it. We take a look at the new 4 teams and why we won't get them for a while. Let's just take a look at this last draft. I already mentioned we completely emptied an entire minor league team already. Madison has no team for next season as it stands after the draft. Madison and everybody else is going to have to cycle in as many more new players as possible. They'll get a whole bunch of new players in time for the new minor league season, season 8, to start off closer to October, November time. The big thing is we take Alamo City, for example, right? They still have to gain, I don't even have to say gain any more players. They have enough for a first team and half a second team already. If we were to take and put 4 more teams in the league right now, we'd have enough, but we'd have about the same type of roster sizes we would have in the old system, in the old era, which is good in some cases, but it also can be kind of weird in some cases. Also, it's a brand new era, brand new game, brand new system to figure out. Every single coach has had to have gone through a learning experience throughout this entire offseason. And they're still doing it now. I talked with TJ Harper just last night. Says, I'm doing something right now. I'm cleaning the house. But as soon as I'm done with that, I got to go run another sim. And I'm sure you could probably talk to Eddie Gage or Gerald Smith. And their setup, their 4-5 TV setup is now converted into, well, now I have to get computers. And I have to run this thing on 4 or 5 different computers. And I'm sure it's already being done. I'm sure Eddie or Destro or Chad or name a head coach here is doing something like that to get as much data, as much information about how their teams operate, how their new playbooks operate, how everything operates. To give 4 new teams with 4 sets of brand new coaches a team now would be throwing lambs to a slaughter. Or a wolf in lamb's clothing into an opposite slaughter in some cases. Because we don't know what each team is planning. We won't know how teams react to each other's game plans. It's gonna be a learning curve this season. We are going to see teams that at one point were stalwarts have terrible seasons. We're gonna see teams from last season, Queen City, who had one of the best drafts of the class, if they put things together, they very well could have a respectable season, be back in the playoffs for the first time in who knows how long. That's the kind of system we're looking at right now. We are about to witness a lot of change, a lot of inaccuracies, a lot of football. That's what we're going to watch. Folks may have came in because of the graphics, now have left because of the graphics. Folks might have come in because they wanted a team in a certain location and because they weren't able to get ownership have left. But we are here. The SFL did not go belly up because of a new era change. I used a analogy on the draft show, and I'm going to use it again. Think of this new era change as how Formula One did their regulation change. If you take a look at Formula One from 4 years ago, they had a lot of weird things on the side of their cars. Now they can't have any of that. Now it all matters on what's underneath the car. They call it ground effect. A lot of little technical stuff I won't get too much into, but the cars look vastly different. Formula One didn't lose a whole bunch of fans because the regulation changed. Yeah, they might have lost a couple. But it's the same thing here in the SFL. We change suppliers. We change engine suppliers. But the league has grown larger. There are more players now on an active contract than there have been at any other point in SFL history. We might have one less team than we did last season, but that is due to figuring out a whole bunch of stuff for that ownership group and whether or not now that ownership group led by Johnny Pickler continues to exist. That's a big question now. I teased in the teaser trailer. Is Johnny Pickler a bigger question? Becoming an owner a bigger story, or is having one less team a bigger story? That's something we can bring up in the People's Presser. Still plenty of time to put your questions in the show questions chat over on the NETMA Discord server, link to which is down below in the description. Go ahead and pop in there if you haven't already. We'd love to have you. Love to discuss a lot of stuff. And you get access to a special set of stuff. Like, just for example, I'm giving it out right now. There's a special episode 0 show that came out just for members of the Discord. So go check it out. Go check out that show. It goes through a whole big old... I had a PowerPoint presentation of what the show is going to look at. I break down a few different things. NETMA isn't just going to be a show anymore. You can check all that out in the episode 0 show. When we come back, it's the People's Presser right here on NETMA. Stay tuned. Welcome back to segment number 3 or part 3 here of NETMA. And we are back here live with your host, Tyler Falk. And it's now time for the People's Presser, where you guys get to act like SFL reporters and you get to ask me a whole bunch of questions and I'm put on the spot and have to answer them. So let's head on over to the show question channel of the NETMA Discord and take a look at what you guys put in there. And at the beginning of the show, there was nothing in there. It was like mothballs in there. It was hard to clean out from every single day of inactive use. Now it's filled to the brim pretty much. So thank you so much for participating in the People's Presser. All right, let's start with the first question on the docket. Let's start with Bo Martin Jr. is what team makes the biggest leap forward and backwards? Now, it's really too soon to tell for a lot of this stuff. If you want to give me a team that really steps forward this season, just based on what we've seen in the off season, what we've seen in the draft, that is a very tough one. Now, I could pull a leg here and say, oh, London is gonna fall off the face of the earth. Well, yeah, because they're not even gonna play a single game. But if you're wondering where these questions are, they're in the SFL or the NETMA server Discord, first time back, NETMA Discord server, link to which is down in the description of this video. I mean, I think as far as taking a step back goes, I think you have to look at Sioux Falls. We'll talk about them here more in a little bit, but I think Sioux Falls takes a step back. I think they lost a lot of people. I believe Nick Fargo is gone. I believe a lot of that core on defense got reshuffled around. Let me just make sure I'm talking about everybody correctly. That way I'm not getting things out of the... No, Nick Fargo moved to defensive end. He was a linebacker. He moved to defensive end. That's going to look different. Sioux Falls only has 2 linebackers. In a new era in which running the football will be so much more pivotal. And you have a lot of teams now with solid offensive lines, with contracted personnel solely dedicated to being on the offensive line. I really think that Sioux Falls might struggle this season. I think every team with 23 active players on their roster is going to struggle this season. Now, you'll see a very big difference, in my opinion, based on that. Because the teams that had to get to 23 and could only get to 23 due to the salary cap are just hamstrung in a way. Because we got teams like Alamo City over here who have got 34 players already having signed the dotted line, and they have nearly $3 million more in salary. $3 million more SFL dollars in salary. You now take a look at a team like Louisiana. They've got nearly $10 million more than what Sioux Falls will be able to do, what Denver will be able to do, what I believe Jacksonville will be able to do. I think Sioux Falls is going to struggle. We might see teams that really did a fantastic job on this draft take an early edge. So Louisiana, I think, stands more of a chance of making the playoffs this season than they did last season, even just by their draft. Have you seen the contracts for their new 2 running backs? Dwayne Salmons, Chris Grant Jr., totaling over $8 million. You're not going to get that in a team that has to stay below a price point. You've got maybe, I think Seattle might turn a corner. They might be able to make the postseason this time around, but it only depends on how much work they put into type attack. Now, I said it earlier on the episode 0 show, so for those of you that weren't part of the server yet and want to hear my opinion, I think though type attack is a great character pick and a great quarterback, he is not, as far as potential value, the right pick. If you want to win now, you would have picked a guy like Brown, picked Madison's quarterback, picked Albuquerque's quarterback, picked San Jose's. I think San Jose's quarterback was about the same, but you get what I'm saying, right? Type attack was the third best quarterback in terms of value, which is not for the faint of heart. So Seattle might do well. Louisiana might do well. I think Sioux Falls, any team that has to play with the cap, struggles. All right, let's go on to the next question. Best and worst draft. That's coming up in the next segment. We'll get to that here in a second. Who's the steal of the draft? That's a great question, Guy Clausen. As far as the steal of the draft goes, Fort Worth Toros. Sunny Sky is a really good steal as far as character pick goes. Sunny Sky is active in a couple different leagues, but is committed. If you want someone with commitment, you draft Sunny Sky, right there. Middle of the ground, middle of the pack as far as value goes, top tier as it comes to sticking with it. And that's also what type attack brings. Type attack, he lives and breathes longevity. He lives and breathes stability. Same thing with Kenny Slider and Logan Lee. They breed stability. They've hung it out in the minors for this long. They will more than likely stick with an SFL team for that long. Another steal of the draft, I would have to say, Timothy Mossam King to Vancouver. We'll talk about Vancouver and the crazy draft that they had here in a second, but Timothy Mossam King, one of the best wide receivers on the board, doesn't go until the second to last pick. Come on. Ay. So, couple steals of the draft. Without being privy to the salary, to the 22 salary cap, Eddie Gage asks, do you think Alamo City will be able to retain all their players at the current value? They currently have 34 players, most on any active roster. If that salary cap is, that's not even the biggest problem. Like I said, Louisiana is going to be the biggest problem. They have $34 million in salary cap right now. Alamo City has about $27-28 million. That's a big, big difference. So I don't even think players are going to be the issue. It's going to be as we continue to build us back up to about maybe the same standard we were as far as SFL last season, working out all the kinks and everything. I don't think players will be the issue, because though in order for Alamo City to do this, they cut back on a lot of key pieces. They brought everyone really far deep back into this pack. Example, Brad Jones is the highest paid guy on the team right now, $3.2 million. The next closest guy is $1.5 million lower than him. At $1.7 million. That's quarterback Ace Fennick. Top three guys on their roster are offensive players. And we will see that everywhere. You will see that everywhere. Everyone is paying their offensive people. They're cutting back more on defense. Will that make the SFL much more of a high-scoring game like we used to see in the season 1 through season 15 time frame of the SFL, where we could see maybe a 60-point game from a team more often? Are we going to see more blowouts? Are we going to see more neck and neck games with a lot of points, over 100 points? Still a lot of stuff to work out. Still a lot of stuff to delve into on that regard. So like I said, players not the issue. It's how big you're paying these players. I think what the league will do, what they should do in terms of the cap for season 22, we're already talking about season 22, is look at the average, the median, and the range of these salaries right now, what they look like at the end of the season, and come up with a number that best gets a rough range, a rough mean of both numbers that they come up with. I think we'll probably see maybe 30 million in cap for next season, maybe 35 million in cap for next season. Don't know, but I think Louisiana is going to be hit with the cap bug in season 22. This is a win or nothing, a win at SFL championship or nothing for Louisiana. Okay, who is the biggest winning player? Robert Cherry asks, who is the biggest winning players in the league / SFL and directly caused by the draft, and who was the biggest losing players? Winning players, quarterbacks. 5 quarterbacks taken this season. 1 or 2 of them may be starters. 1 or 2 of them may be starters, and I am sure that Dwayne and everybody in Motor City did not like what I had to say on air on the draft, where I said I think they have to look at a quarterback's controversy right now. They have to take a look at Ibrahim Krita and say, are you really the best selection at quarterback for us? Michael Brown. When you have a SFLM championship winning quarterback waiting in the wings. I digress. Quarterbacks won. 5 I'm going to take off the board when in previous seasons you would only see 1. Losing players, the most losing players, I don't think we really had too much of any players. I think with with the second largest draft in the league, yes, I think the players left outside were the losers of this draft, but at the same time, with how many people left the SFLM to come into the league this season, that leaves the door open for more possibilities. Because we will have 100. I gotta do some math here. We'll have 112 picks next season. Because we'll have that 28th team returning. Whether it be wherever Johnny Pickler takes him or somewhere else. Let's see. Bo Martin Jr., this is the final question. We got to wrap up here in about a minute. What do you think about teams drafting players that have either never talked to or talked to them just as they're about to pick them? Sometimes it's the nature of the beast. Sometimes that's how things happen. You think everyone you think is going to be available, and all of a sudden your entire board is wiped. You have to talk to somebody before you draft them. And sometimes you just have to make a split-second decision and take them. But for like the first 2 rounds, you should have a good idea of who you're picking. You should have already talked to that pick or two. But after that, it all comes down to I personally, you should talk to those players after that. All right, when we come back, the final part of this return to NETMA. When we come back, a couple different segments, a couple new segments when we return. This is NETMA.
Came up short today. Feels like I fell 1,000 times. Nothing but doubt to flood my mind. 'Cause sometimes it's hard to remember why I ever started racing with my dreams. A restless December, feeling I was meant for more than I believed.
Welcome back to the program, otherwise known as NETMA. I'm your host, Tyler Falk. One final segment to go here in the program's return, and we've got a lot still to cover. So, this first segment, it's called 5x5, which means I've got 5 teams I want to talk about in 5 minutes. At some point, you know how I said I'd probably have something for this? I want a timer, I want a clock right here that just has 5 minutes on it with a little card flipping up. Didn't have time to get that stuff in, but I digress. That's the plan for hopefully next show or further down the line. And you can help me out with that. If you want to help, go ahead and pop into the NETMA Discord server, link to which is down below. You can go ahead and post some show questions in there. You can go ahead and just talk with us, see what else is going on in there. All right, so let's go ahead and get 5x5 started. This for the first time around, is my draft winners and losers. There was a question up there. I left it off for just this purpose instead. So already ticking under the clock. So let's go. First winner in my opinion, in the draft is Alamo City. With 34 players on the roster, they have really set themselves up for success. They've got some depth in case someone goes down. I think they did really well in terms of drafting. I think they really, really, really did well in terms of drafting. Let's get that stopped. I got to do a lot of things. I'm the producer, host, and host of the show, so I got to do everything here. Anywho, back to Alamo City. Draft, of course, grabbing a whole bunch of players. If I do my math right, they only drafted 5 players. But the players that they got to boost them from just 29 players up to 34 is what makes him pretty good. Rainstorm, a fullback, needed a fullback, thick and juicy. Is he still over there in Alamo City? I gotta remember. No, he's not over there. Thick and juicy is no longer there. See what happens. See what happens when when you try and do everything and try and talk about stuff. Anywho, look, they got 5 wide receivers, and you're going to see a lot more of that here in the SFL, is 5 contracted wide receivers. Now, you got Rainstorm, and Thick and Juicy did move up to halfback. Thank you, Albert Begin. He now is playing second fiddle to Brad Jones, but it expands that team's running game, in which this new era is going to be heavily dominated by the run, in my opinion. You're going to see a lot more runs, and so that's why you see them having 3 backs. That's why they were able to go ahead and take care of business. They took care of business as well in helping protect not only their quarterback, but their halfback this offseason and get 5 offensive linemen. I think Alamo City have done a really good job in terms of that regard. Theodore Rocker coming in as well for him. Willie Bands and Cody Lawrence helping solidify the defensive backfield also. All right, first loser of the draft, and that has to be, in my personal opinion, Tulsa. Tulsa has to be my first loser, and here's why. You take a look at what they did in general. They only had 1 draft pick, Tulsa, and that was in the 2nd round. You're thinking to yourself, no, wait a second, they had 2 picks, didn't they? Well, they drafted Marquis Sango, which, in all respective purposes, is a decent tight end, helps fill out that roster for Tulsa. But it's more or less what they did after Sango came in. And Sango isn't even signed for Tulsa at this point. He has still yet to sign his contract and be the 3rd string tight end, in which they could potentially have needed they could have picked another wide receiver. Maybe him with Mossam King would have been a great partner for Gabriel Manning. 2 really talented wide receivers. That would have been something to a talented rookie wide receiver coming in and pairing up with Manning would have been awesome to see. But you look at the end of the draft, second to last pick. I mentioned Timothy Mossam King. They trade that away instead of picking the guy that got picked in that spot. And we're going to talk about that team actually right now. Another winner, Vancouver. Everything was falling into place. Had in my personal opinion, the best draft, and everything fell to them. They got Austin Blanco at the end after Mike Daggs was really chiding him in the draft chat all night long. They get their wide receiver Zora Luna to fall to him. They get J.J. Winfield to fall him, another really strong defensive back. But it kept happening. Logan Lee fell all the way down to them at 50. Now, someone is saying Sango signed for Tulsa, right? Marquise Sango? Oh, he did sign. Okay. There he is. Okay, so he is going to be the number 1 tight end. So that's a better job by Tulsa, but still all right. Anywho, Vancouver, number 1 in that regard. I'm already taking too long. You see, I got to have a clock. I got to have a different clock for this. Otherwise, we got to go on to draft grades. But other winners in the draft, Louisiana, the smash and grab of the 2 running backs. And of course, as far as losing goes, we'll talk about it here as I bring up my full draft grades. Quick note on these grades. There's no rank next to them because there's a grade next to them. So even though teams may have certain grades or they're put in a certain order in a certain grade category, I just put them there for there. There's no really good ranking for it. But here's why Sioux Falls is my loser of the draft. You look at how they drafted. They needed a linebacker. They needed 2 linebackers, actually, at one point. Their first pick is a punter. When you had just seen Luis Quintana come off the board, DJ Kilgannon come off the board, there was only 1 true middle linebacker in the draft. Or 2 true middle linebackers in the draft, one of which had just gotten in the league literally days ago. They draft a punter and a tight end, which they saw as their needs. But in terms of how they drafted, it looks like they had drafted the same way you would typically draft in seasons past. So Sioux Falls might lose the draft. There's the full picture for you, that side. This will be posted in the NETMA Discord server after the fact in the Power Rankings channel for you guys to go ahead and check out, maybe share amongst the league. But that is the Power Rankings, or I call it Power Ranks because that's how it's labeled here in OBS, but that is my draft grades for season 21. All right, we got about 6 minutes for a lightning round, and so I can go ahead and answer questions both here in Discord, here on YouTube, or we can just talk about whatever we want to talk about for the last 6 minutes of the show starting right now. So I'm being pinged by a certain Canadian, just trying to get he's trying to get my attention. He tries to get my attention during broadcasts, and he tries to get my attention during everything. But let's see. He says, if I can get the contract in before you're done with the show, I would suggest talking about Logan Lee's value. And apparently it is in. Vancouver's contract for Logan Lee is in. Oh my Lanta. We looked at, no way. Dwayne Salmons is no longer the most paid player in the SFL. It is Logan Lee. $4.694 million. Logan Lee is going to shred. But you look at... Now here's the biggest question for all of you guys. Is Logan Lee going to be the starter, or is it still going to be the natural? Is it going to be the newly minted Hall of Famer? That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Holy cats. Wow. All right. So Logan Lee, everybody. We got ourselves an MVP front runner. I mean, look at all the halfbacks just getting paid here in the SFL now. You've got Logan Lee, Dwayne Salmons, Chris Grant Jr. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players. The top 11 paid players are all running backs, guys. It's insane. If no one thought that this new era of the SFL was going to be heavily predicated on the run game. Well, we were just proven wrong, I think. Watch out for the run. It's going to be real tough to stop these backs if you don't have a game plan for them. So that's insane. All right, a couple of more picks, or a couple more questions that I've been seeing here. So Eddie Gage, who wins each division in my opinion? I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think Indianapolis wins the Central Division this season. I think as far as the North Division, I think Queen City takes it an upset at the moment, just based on the last couple of things. We still have plenty of stuff to talk about and everything, and I'll come out with my official predictions later. But just knee-jerk picks at the moment. I've got Vancouver, of course, winning the Pacific. I think Baltimore wins the East. I think Alamo City wins the Tex-Mex division. Florida wins the East, and Zona wins the West. That's my gut picks at the moment. I'll have, again, my picks mean absolutely nothing because I can always be wrong, and of course we love to make I can always make 2 and 10 predictions here and there. Let's see, did I miss any other questions? Alex Marshall over in Queen City. Is this quarterback 2 thing going to last, or will it be a phase that goes away after one too many QB2s get eventually shafted? And now, I really think it won't be that way. I don't think this is going to be a phase. This QB2 era will stick around. It's going to last. It's going to last the entire time of this new era of the SFL, however long that might be, and further. Because I think teams will come up with inventive and creative ways to utilize both quarterbacks in their system. I think there's going to be a much better rotation of these quarterbacks. I personally think Ibrahim Creada will be out of a job by half the length of the season. I personally believe that. I want to take a look at Motor City's, not Las Vegas, Motor City's contract situation for their quarterbacks, and I don't know whether or not it was just to spite me, or what have you, but Michael Brown was given a much less contract than he deserves, in my opinion. He was purposely given a contract lower than Creada. Now, I said it when they brought in Creada from the get-go. Creada is not the solution for Motor City long term. Now you draft a championship winning quarterback, and in terms of Alex Marshall, yes, he gets shafted. Michael Brown has already gotten shafted. Now, I think Motor City, and it shows that I think Motor City had a great draft, but I think the way they're handling the quarterback situation is absolutely abysmal. It's absolutely abysmal. Final question real quick. Do you think injuries should be real? I think within the next 2 seasons, we will see injuries return. I think injuries will return to the SFL in due course. So that is going to do it. We have hit 59 minutes, which means it's time now for me to encompass this whole thing. If you watched this entire live show, thank you for sticking with this entire hour-long show. If you're watching back on playback here on the 4th part of the show, which, of course, like I said earlier, all these segments, all these little breaks are breaking up the show for me so that I can push out these shows to you guys in 15-minute intervals for you guys to watch back at your own time. So that is going to do it here on the first edition back for NETMA. Thank you to everybody in chat, just everyone I can see right now. Bo Martin Jr., Adam Wiseman, Jay Ballmer, Hunter Norwood, Guy Clausen, Eddie Gage, and so many others have joined me. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. New time, new date. We'll get to that in the NETMA server Discord. Wait until then. Until then, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, ladies and gentlemen.